All these voices, all these voices, all these things you can't explain, all these painful memories, they keep haunting you, it's haunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoking gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me, of you and me.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. And with me as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
On tonight's episode, we are going to take a look at this crazy-ass article that one of our friends sent to us. And it's absolutely nuts, so get ready for this. It comes from rings.com, and the title is Montana Man Arrested After His Best-Selling Jerky is Found to be Made of Human Meat. It was published on February 21st, 2020 by Gong, it says. Butte, Montana. 72-year-old Shep Arnold has been arrested for selling dehydrated human meat, aka jerky, at his general store, Shep's Goods. Well, not all Shep's Goods are good. Arnold has been running his store for the last 35 years, and over time, there became a cult following for his distinctive jerky. Most everyone who had the opportunity to visit Butte would get some of Shep's jerky. It just so happened that an executive from Jack Link's was staying in Butte for a family event. He decided to purchase some of Shep's jerky and take it back to work, and see if anyone there could see what it is that made Shep's jerky so special. When the jerky made its way back to the Jack Link's factory, it was given to the in-house scientist to run tests on in hopes of deciphering what ingredients Arnold was using for his jerky. What they didn't expect was that the meat wasn't that of a cow, but of a human. Tests were ran by an independent lab to verify the results by Jack Link's. Again, human meat. Local authorities arrested Arnold on suspicion of using human meat for his jerky that he sold to the public, and police needed to find a supply of this meat. Turns out about once a year in the summer, Shep hires a new helper for his store. Summer is a busy time, and I can use the extra help for a few months, said Arnold. What he neglected to say, but was later found out by authorities, that 3 of these men have been reported missing. It doesn't take much for the Butte authorities to put 2 and 2 together and place Shep Arnold under arrest for making and selling the human meat. While locked up, authorities hope to connect the missing men via DNA extracted from the jerky to known samples of the missing men. As more is revealed, we will update this story. And that is the end of this article. So on the face, you look at the article, you say, whoa, that's a crazy story, right? But is it true? That's the question. Well, this one was literally the easiest one I have ever had to prove or disprove. Now, let me start this by saying that I have seen this article shared on Facebook, in horror groups, and by individual people. I have seen this article shared on Twitter, and people are very serious about this article. They're like, oh, what a crazy story, isn't this amazing? And everybody's like, oh, that was terrible, blah, 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 right? So this is something that is widely believed by a hell of a lot of people, and that kind of blows me away. Because, first of all, when you first pull this article up, at the very top of the page, above the menu, above the headline, it says Rings, probably the best satire site ever. Now remember, this is rings.com, the site that this article is on. And here at the very top of the page, the very first thing you should see when you pull this article up, it's telling you that it's a satire site. Now I could stop right there, show over, we've done 4 minutes so far, and that's it. That's all you get tonight. But, like always, what I do is I check it out anyway. I investigate it, I research it, I make sure. So I went beyond the site itself telling you that they're full of crap. And I actually looked into this one. So I've already mentioned that Rings is a satire site. I've already mentioned where this was seen. One version of this had a website that was called News 24. So it makes you think that it's a news site. And the headline on that article was Sioux Falls, South Dakota man arrested after selling jerky made of human meat. This is the same story. The story is exactly the same. They just changed the name of the place. and put it on another site. There is no public record whatsoever of any 72-year-old man named Shep Arnold living in Sioux Falls. There is no record on Google or with the South Dakota Secretary of State's office of a business in Sioux Falls where there's any jerky sold called Shep's Goods. Also, there are absolutely no dates listed in the story whatsoever. So there's no way to check and say, okay, on this date, he was arrested on this date. They don't include anything like that. That's another very easy clue when you're reading a news story that it's BS, is if there aren't details like that. If they don't give you dates, if they don't give you charges, if they don't give you arrests, if they don't give you all those things, most likely you're not reading an actual news story. And also, the authorities that were sourced in the story are not from Sioux Falls, they're from Butte. Now remember, the original story on Rings said the man was arrested in Montana. The repost of it on the News 24 site said Sioux Falls. And as I mentioned already, at the very top of the page, it tells you that Rings is probably the best satire site ever. So this one is 100%, completely, categorically, and provably false. Complete BS. Never happened. It's a fake story. The fact that so many people were fooled by this, when it clearly states in the very beginning of the article that it's a satire, proves something that I have said for a long time. The majority of people don't ever actually read the articles. All they do is look at the headline and hit share. They don't actually click it. They don't actually read it. That's why nobody actually ever knows what the hell they're talking about pretty much anything, because nobody actually reads anything. They look at a headline, they say, oh wow, that's terrible, and they hit share. And then they go on and talk about it as if they know what the hell they're talking about. But this one, completely fake. And literally within the first 2 seconds, you would know it was fake if you actually read the article. So that's all I have to say on this one. I want to talk about a few more that you see all the damn time on Facebook and on Twitter and all over the place. There are sites such as Babylon Bee. Now, anything that is shared that comes from Babylon Bee is complete BS. And they share all kinds of stuff. A lot of it's political stuff, and they do it way exaggerated. So let's say, I'm not going to use Trump, I'm not going to use Biden, because I don't want this to be a political thing. Let's say there's a candidate for president whose name is Jeff Smith. Now let's say Jeff Smith is anti-gay marriage, just to pick a topic. Now we're not saying good, we're not saying bad, okay? Doesn't matter how you feel about gay marriage, doesn't matter if you're for or against it, doesn't matter in this case. Only thing that matters is that Jeff Smith, the candidate, is against it. So Babylon Bee knows that Jeff Smith, the candidate, is against gay marriage. So Babylon Bee writes an article that claims that Jeff Smith, the candidate, gave a speech. And in that speech, he said that all gay people that want to get married should be murdered or should be sent to the moon on a rocket or some crazy thing, fed to lions, whatever you want to make it. So then people that are against Jeff Smith, the candidate, will say, I knew that Jeff Smith, the candidate, was homophobic or racist or sexist or whatever, ist or phobia or robia or whatever the hell you want to say. All that nonsense. It backs up their preconceived notion. So they hit share, and they write some rant above it, and they hit share. But the problem is they never actually read the damn article. If they would have clicked on it and read it, they would have seen there's no way this can be true. Because on the Babylon Bee site, at the very bottom, it says it's a satire site at the bottom of the page. But way before you even get to the bottom of the page, when you actually read one of these articles, you realize within the first paragraph, this cannot possibly be true because it is so far-fetched and so out there that there's no way any logical thinking person could ever believe that this is true. But the problem is, all those people that shared it never read it. They never scrolled down to see if it was fake or not. They just shared it because they thought the headline proved a point. That's a problem. That's a problem not just for people that are against Jeff Smith, the candidate, but it's also a problem for the people that are for Jeff Smith, the candidate, because they do the same damn thing. Too many people nowadays don't ever actually know what they're talking about. They don't research anything. They don't know. You see that with all of the stuff that goes on in our society. Whatever the hot topic is at the moment, you'll have people for it and you'll have people against it. And they argue back and forth, and most of them don't have any damn idea what they're talking about because nobody's actually researched it and looked it up and seen what the hell actually happened. That happens so much. And here's the problem. The problem with this is it causes a lot of problems with our society. You have people fighting each other and hating each other and all this craziness when it isn't even necessary. If everybody would just look it up, then they would see what happened and there wouldn't be any arguments because everybody could agree, okay, yeah, this is what happened. Look, it's right there. But since nobody did that, now everybody hates each other. And it's complete madness. So I realized that this particular article was very easy to disprove, and there's not a whole lot to talk about on it. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy, and he can talk a little bit about this article and talk a little bit about whatever he wants to talk about as far as what I've said. And maybe we'll talk about like this whole theme or something. I don't know. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. This isn't just about this article. I think it's more about a lot of things. We'll get a lot of people sending stuff and say, look at this article. And it's not even true. They didn't even read it. It's been twisted to a certain propaganda. Remember, 80% to 90% of stuff is probably been exaggerated or not even true. If you hate somebody, they're going to, and what are they going to do? They're going to write nice stuff about you. They're going to say stuff about you horrible. If it's fake, they're going to add to it to make you want to read it. It's already been proven the news lies. And people still read these magazines. This is what blows my mind. And that's what the problem is. And I see it too damn much, especially on social media. These people are living and dying over this. 90% of the stuff that you guys are fighting about, and it's with anything, it's probably been twisted. It's not even true, or it's been exaggerated. But you're believing it. And I get it. It's common sense. Now, if somebody dies, I have to go look up 60, 70 different things now to make sure they're dead. Because it could be a lie. Just like with paranormal. We love paranormal, but it's saturated with too many people who just want to be famous. And don't care about the industry. It doesn't care about paranormal at all. Or crypto. They want to be famous because they want to be on TV. I'm just going to be honest. I don't care anymore. He said he got this article and he's read it in a different place. This sounds like Motel Hell. You ever seen that movie in the 1980s? Farmer Vincent Smoked Meat? That's where they got the story from. I think it was a town in Texas horror movie. Guy had like a little hotel and he gotta keep it PG, but it was a horror movie about a guy who was a cook people and makes meat out of it. It's where they got the story. It's pretty much what he was saying is the same thing. They must have seen that movie. Or Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, because that one does the same thing. He's making meat and selling it and winning rewards and chili. And you guys ever seen that movie, the second one? It's really it's crazy. That's what this sounds like. It's just a made-up horror story. Maybe this has happened before. I've heard stories of this happening in the past. But this story right now is just a reflection of what's going on and what James tried to say. And just so everybody knows, we're not saying we agree with any. We're just showing you an example because I don't want somebody to listen to the show and, oh, James is making fun of gay people or stuff like that. It has nothing to do with that. He's showing you an example. That's why I want people to realize we're showing you an example. We could have used that, say that somebody likes Captain America, but they're saying that Captain America is really Spider-Man. That's what we're saying, and they don't like Captain America. They like Spider-Man better. Well, they're going to say something derogatory about Captain America. Go look at the interviews. Go look at the people seeing things. If you've seen a monster like Bigfoot, and you're saying it doesn't exist, but there's been 30 million people seen it now in the last 100 years. So everybody's lying, right? So the 30 million, and I guarantee 90% of it is lies and exaggerations or made up, and I agree with you. But there's still a 10% it's true. Just like James did a show about the NBC, he's doing a paranormal show too, the Paranormal News on our channel. And it's also it's on his channel, James Hershey Jr. You guys want to check it out? He was talking about the UFO that was on NBC. They're admitting it now. They're admitting something's there, the military. But people don't want to believe it. There's still people arguing it. People are not just making up these videos. It's not I mean, there's sometimes it is happening. It is being fake, some of it, but it's impossible. We're not the only planet. There's trillions of planets. It's impossible for us to be the only species in the universe. It's mathematically impossible. There's got to be other things out there. I don't care what you believe or what. That's your opinion. Fine. You don't believe it. That's good. I'm not going to argue with you unless you believe that the Earth is the only thing and nothing else exists. And I don't know who believes that, but if you do, then you know what? I would love to have you on the show. I want to hear how you think the Earth is the only thing that's here. We're just living a fantasy world and everything's made up. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is a chance that maybe all this is all made up. Has anybody ever thought about it? Is this all just, we're just living off of just the telephone effect? When I hear something, I learned it just and exaggerated to another story, to another person tells it. You know what I mean? The old telephone effect. Are we living this? But I believe I know there is. But I'm just saying this. There's probably a couple people out there who just believe the Earth's the only thing. And there's probably people who believe there's trillions of different species of aliens and I don't know what you would call them, aliens in different species. And there's some people think it's all made up. This was a good article because it brought up a lot of different things that we deal with right now and today. I love that somebody sent it to us, but the point is some of these people believe it. They didn't really read the article. There's people who actually believe this now. And I guarantee there'll probably be a movie about it. Even though it's already been made in 1980. Motel Hell. Check that guy. That movie's great. It's a great old B movie. You guys would like it. It's funny. If some of you guys are probably horror fans, you know what I'm talking about. Or Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. You guys check that one out. You guys all who know who that is. So I really thought this was a very entertaining episode we're doing right now, especially this article, because I laughed when I saw it. And then James actually looks it up. And like I tell everybody, James is one of the smartest people in the world. And I'm not just saying that. So he looks up things better than most people do. And he finds out. I mean, everybody's human. He's not going to sit here and say he's 100% right. He knows everything. Everybody makes errors. But 95% of the time, he's right. 97% of the time, actually, he really studies his things. He probably looked this up for days. Probably even went to computers. He goes to the libraries. James loves to learn. That's one thing I'm going to say. And when people sit here and they try to argue us about stuff, he really does look up his information about things. There's some stuff that, they're just not going to tell you. Like I said, he doesn't know everything. No one knows everything. No one knows everything anywhere. It doesn't matter who you think you are. No one knows everything about anything. We just know what we've learned and found out. But James really does study. He loves to do it. He loves it. It's like a drug to him. I'm different. There's nothing wrong with that. But James knows this stuff, guys. I'm not just going to go and say, oh, hey, I'm just going to make something up and, I saw it on the internet and I'm just going to talk about it. No, we're going to talk about it and make sure if it's real. This is not real. That's all I got to say, but thank you for bringing this article, James. I loved it because it got me to say something I had to say. Go ahead, brother.
While we are on this subject, I want to talk about another one that I have received a ton of requests for. This one is very interesting, actually. It is the Russian sleep experiment. Now, I can't tell you how many people have asked me to find out whether this is true or not. So the basic story, for those that don't know it, is that there was an experiment that was set in the late 1940s in Russia. It was done by the military, and what they did was they took 5 political prisoners, and they kept them in a sealed gas chamber. And they continually administered this stimulant, this airborne stimulant, that would keep them awake. So these 5 people were supposedly awake for 30 days straight. They were promised that if they got through the experiment, they would be set free from prison completely. So they had incentive to cooperate. So in the beginning, the prisoners were behaving just like they always would. They would talk to each other. They would, whisper to the researchers and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, over time, their discussions got darker. Let's put it that way. After 9 days, one of the subjects actually began screaming uncontrollably for hours. And the others completely ignored that was even happening. Like it didn't even exist. The man screamed for so long and so loud that he ruptured his vocal cords. And he just couldn't scream anymore. Eventually, he became paralyzed. When the second man started screaming, the others put pages that they tore from books on the windows, and they pasted those pages onto the windows using their own feces. Kind of gross. So a few days go by, and the scientists that were doing the experiment weren't able to actually see inside the chamber. And it was like completely quiet inside that chamber after that. So the scientists got on the intercom to see if the subjects were still alive. And eventually the prisoners answered them and said, yes, they're still alive and they're still cooperating. On the 15th day of the experiment, the researchers decided to turn off the gas and to open up the chamber because they were getting a little bit concerned about what was going on. They thought maybe this was going to end up killing these people. So when they looked inside, they saw that 4 of the subjects were still there, still alive. And they had severely mutilated and disemboweled themselves during the past couple days where they had the windows covering. They had torn off their flesh and some of their muscle even. And some of them had begun removing their internal organs and eating them. They were doing self-cannibalism. And supposedly there was 4 inches of blood and water on the floor. And the way they accomplished this was by jamming hunks of flesh into the drain and under the door so that the water couldn't escape and the blood couldn't escape. And they were causing like a little lake of blood and urine and water and all kinds of liquids to accumulate on the floor. The first subject that died was torn almost completely apart. Apparently they were using a lot of his flesh to block everything up. And he was actually found dead on the floor right by the drain. The subjects that were still alive refused to leave the chamber. And they actually begged the scientists to keep giving them that gas because they didn't want to stop. And when the scientists refused, they became violent. And they murdered one of the soldiers who was there guarding the scientist. And they severely injured another one when they were trying to pull the people out. All of the subjects that were removed from the chamber seemed to have almost superhuman strength when they were fighting back. And none of the sedative drugs that they tried to inject them with to calm them down and make them go to sleep so that they could remove them, none of them had any effect whatsoever, even though these people had been awake for over 15 days. They were adamant that they wanted to stay awake, and they demanded to be given the stimulant gas again. The scientists learned that once the subjects began to fall asleep, as each one would fall asleep, he would die instantly. After all of that, there were 3 subjects left that actually survived. And they were getting ready to go back into that gas chamber and be given the stimulant again, because supposedly the military officials had ordered that that is what should happen. This went against the will of the scientists who said that that's crazy, don't do that. They hooked him up to EKGs and they were showing recurring moments of brain death. So over and over again they were getting brain death. As they were sealing up the chamber, one of the remaining 3 fell asleep and died. The only one that was left that could still speak started screaming wildly that he wanted the door sealed immediately. The military commander ordered the chamber to be closed, and he wanted to lock the researchers in with the remaining subjects. I guess they kind of wanted to make sure that the story did not get out. So one of them draws a gun and kills the commander. And then he kills the remaining surviving subject that couldn't talk. Shot them both in the head. So all the other scientists and other personnel haul ass. They run away from the room. So left in the room is the one surviving subject and one researcher who is scared to death, but he says he is not going to be locked in a room with these monsters. You know, this monster that isn't even a person anymore. So he turns to the subject and he asks what he was now, because he's no longer a person, he's a monster now. So what is he? According to the story, the subject smiles and he tells the researcher that he was an inherent evil inside the human mind that is kept in check by the act of sleeping. So what he's saying is that inside of each of us is this evil creature. And when we sleep, it keeps that evil creature in check. But if you stay awake, it lets him free. The researcher shoots the prisoner in the heart, and he dies. And supposedly his dying words are "so nearly free." And that is the story of the Russian sleep experiment. Is it real? No, not real at all. Never happened. I checked. I researched it. There is absolutely no record of any Russian or Soviet at the time experiments, anything like this. The only way that this could have ever actually happened is if it was completely and totally classified where you cannot find the records. If that was the case, Creepypasta wouldn't have got a hold of it and published it. That's another clue that it's not real, is that the first time any of us ever heard of it was on the site Creepypasta. But this is another one that a ton of people believed and a ton of people shared. And there was a lot of discussion about it, and everybody swore it was true. Oh, I know this is true. I looked it up. I've heard that many times from people. But it's not true at all. 100% not true. The basic point that I'm trying to make with this show today. First of all, we were sent the first article by a listener, and I wanted to go ahead and do that for that person and let them know that it wasn't true. But also, I wanted to kind of make a larger point that you should always research something before you believe it and before you share it. Because the sad truth here is that there are a lot of people that lie. Not just ordinary everyday people. That's not even what I'm talking about here. Because the ordinary everyday people aren't intentionally lying. They're just duped. You know, they didn't read it. They didn't research it. They were lazy. They didn't put in the work. So they don't know any better. They believe what they're sharing is true. They believe what they're saying is true. I'm not even talking about the ordinary person. Because I understand people have lives. You got a job. You got kids. You don't have time to spend the hours and hours and hours that it takes to fully research something to make sure that what you're saying is true. I get it. I'm not trying to come down on anybody listening right now that has shared something that turns out later not to be true. I'm not trying to say anything bad about you. That's not the point of this. The point of this is that there are, let's say, institutions, that's the best way to say it, that intentionally lie and intentionally print false stories and do false stories on TV that they know are not true. And they do it to manipulate and to use you to further their own agendas. It happens all the time. I'll give you a great example from way back in the past so that nobody gets butthurt today. One thing that used to take place every single election is you would have the Democrat Party would come out and always run commercials every year about whoever the Republican candidate was, whether it was president or Senate or House or whatever. Governor, didn't matter. Whatever the position that they were going for. There would always be that commercial where they were talking about how the Republican is going to cut your Social Security benefits. He's going to make sure that old people don't have enough money to live on. They did that for 50 years. Every election, they would say that. Never actually happened, and it never will actually happen, because there is no Republican that wants to or is going to cut your Social Security benefits. Not going to happen. There is no Democrat that is going to cut your Social Security benefits. It is not going to happen. Because the backlash on something like that would destroy whatever political party did it. There's no way in hell these people are ever going to do that. But that fear was used, and a lie was told to manipulate people into doing what that party wanted them to do. You have it in reverse as well. The Republican Party loved to use the gay agenda in the same way that the Democrats used the Social Security lie. They would make people believe that somehow, if a man wanted to be in love with another man, that meant that they were going to somehow come into your home and turn your family gay or something. There was never really an actual allegation put forth that this is what's going to happen, but it was kind of hinted that way. Like, somehow if a man loves another man or a woman loves another woman, all of society is going to explode. Also, not true. But it's the same principle. It's using fear to manipulate people for their own agendas. Both parties have done this. I myself am an independent. That's what I'm registered as. I tend to be more conservative. I am a pastor. I am a Christian. But I don't have any problem whatsoever with gay people. That is between them and God. That has nothing to do with me. The Bible teaches us that we are not to judge each other. We are supposed to love each other. That's what we're called to do, is just love each other. So I don't care who you want to love. It is absolutely none of my business. I don't care what color your skin is. I love you just the same. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference to me. There are too many little things like that that are used in our society to turn us against each other. And the problem is, the actual problem that is being overlooked is way more dangerous than the little silly crap that we always fight about. You have people that are using these issues to keep us all fighting against each other, so we're not paying attention to what's actually happening. It's a story as old as time itself. It's been done all the way back to medieval times. Some people call it using a straw man. You construct a straw man, which is an issue that everybody's going to be arguing back and forth on. But that issue actually doesn't matter at all to the people that are in charge, because whatever they've created is BS. It's not real. It's supposed to look real, and we're supposed to believe it's real, and we're supposed to fight each other about it. But what they're actually doing over here, with the other hand, that we aren't seeing because we're too busy fighting about this original thing, is way worse, and essentially it's enslaving us all. So my advice to everybody listening is research. Find out what is actually happening. Whenever a story comes on the news, almost 100% of the time, that story is not entirely true. There might be nuggets of truth there, but that story is always spun, and it is always crafted in a way to elicit a desired response from a desired group of people, in order to cause chaos and to cause the American people to fight each other. It's what they call a psyop. And it's been done and done and done. And this is done by both sides. Okay, you'll notice that tonight I have been very careful to not talk about current events that are happening and not to talk about any particular party as far as the only one I'm talking about. Because this is done by both sides. So my advice to everyone listening, every time something happens in this country that gets everybody all crazy and fired up, there's two things you have to do. One, you have to research whatever it is that's happening. Find out the true story. Read the reports for yourself. Find out. It's public knowledge. You can access it. Just takes a little bit of time. Know what you're talking about before you start talking. And even more importantly than that, if they're dangling this explosive thing over here with their left hand and showing you, hey, look at this terrible thing that's happening. Oh, shouldn't you be all mad about it? Automatically, you need to train yourself to look at the other hand. Because when they're dangling this scary thing over here, that means that the other hand is up to no good over here. They're doing something over here that they don't want you to see. And that's why they're dangling this scary thing over here with the other hand. It's the same principle that magicians use. It's sleight of hand. They get you looking over here so you don't see the trick that's done over here. It's exactly what takes place in our media, and that's exactly what takes place in our government. Really, no matter who's in charge, that's what happens. We are all made by the same God. We are all made in the image of God. We are all brothers, and we are all sisters. We got to stop the nonsense. Human beings are some of the most violent and volatile creatures in existence. Our natural instinct, it seems always, is to destroy and to hurt each other. But that never works. The only thing that ever works is love. That's the only way that you can conquer hate, is with love. I'm not trying to preach to you. I'm just giving my point of view here. This is my opinion on it. My opinion is neither side is as bad as the other side thinks they are. A lot of what you think you know about the opposite side is BS. And it doesn't matter which side you're on. You could be on the left side, you could be on the right side. I guarantee you, whichever side you happen to be on, what you think you know about the other side is wrong. At least some of it is wrong. And I can also promise you this. Each one of those people on each side want the same thing. They want peace for their families. They want their children to grow up safe and happy and in love. They don't want to fight. They don't want to hurt each other. They just want peace. They want safety. I think that's true for every person. We all want that. We all want our children to have a better future than we have. So ask yourself this question. If you want a better future for your children, and I want a better future for my children, And we both agree that we want a better future for each other's children as well. Because I'm sure you don't want my kids to have a terrible life. I don't want your kids to have a terrible life. If we all agree, then why are we fighting all the time? I bet you if you go down and you list some of the things that are really important in life, we agree on almost all of them. So why are we always fighting? I would submit to you that the reason we're always fighting is because there are people that are instigating those fights. There are people that are trying to make us hate each other. And I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work in the end. I think people react. I think people don't always research everything and know what they're talking about. And they kind of fly off the handle without the information a lot of times. That's 100% true. But I don't think, at least I hope, that we don't live in a country where it's too late, where we can't love each other again. If we're not past that point, then maybe it's time to kind of take a breath and stop for a minute and just take a breath and ask yourself, how much of this stuff that I'm pissed off about do I actually know? And how much of it is what somebody told me? Let me go and actually look into this and see if this is actually even true, the thing that I'm so angry about. Because sometimes you find that it's not true at all. And sometimes you find that it is true. But at least you'll know for sure. And we have to get to the point where we can talk again. Because we can't even talk to each other anymore in this country. And it's disturbing. It's okay if you don't agree with me. That's what freedom is about. That's what freedom of speech is for. It's for dissenting opinion. It's not, freedom of speech is not for the speech that you want to hear. Because you don't need freedom of speech for that speech. Because you want to hear it. Freedom of speech is there to protect speech that you don't necessarily want to hear. We should all be able to come together and have a discussion. And everybody should be able to put their opinion in. And it should all go into a big old bowl, you know what I mean? Where all of the opinion is, and everybody can have their say. And let the best ideas win without name calling and violence. That's crazy. But that's where we're at. And it's a recipe for disaster. So that's my 2 cents. Whether you agree or you don't agree, I love you anyway. So I'm going to throw back over to old boy so he can do his sum up.
Thank you. And just James hit it on the head. But I do gonna agree with one thing I don't agree with is I think there is some people that just want to see, I hate to use the Joker, want to see the world burn. And they like to instigate. I think 99% of people want everything to be good, but there's still a percent that just don't care. And they like to instigate all this. And they've been doing it for a long time. And if you asked a lot of these people who are all fighting, it's probably something they've heard or got told. It's not even probably true or been exaggerated. I'm not trying on either side. It's just because what's going on. And it's not just this country, it's everywhere. There are certain people who want agendas. And then what they do is they start it like a wildfire. And it just, look at it. And I hope we can fix it, but I don't know anymore. But in the end, things will get better one day. Maybe not today, but one day. Hopefully. But there is people out there who enjoy this, that just want to see the world burn. They had such a miserable life that they want everybody else to realize that there's no coming back. We all have to do it this certain way, or we're never going to be, it's going to be the same thing. Remember, just because somebody lived a bad life or bad experience doesn't mean you're going to. You can't forget they had a bad experience, but you can't, till you know what really happened 100%, then you can't, now if they were done wrong, yes, something should be done. It should be done. But if there's another side to it, there always is, then it should be listened to. It matters how ridiculous it is. But see, in this state, knowing we live in America, we do have freedom of speech. As in other countries, you don't. So remember that some people don't. Other countries have different laws than we do. We have a constitution. Some people don't like that, and they haven't liked it. And that's why we have the issues we have. They think we should be a certain way because they came from another country and they lived in that certain lifestyle, but they think it should change over to the country they used to be at. Or they think that's going to be the way it's going to be different. It's going to be different if it runs this way or that way, when it really not. The best way is, like James was saying, we get everybody's ideas into, like, not a hat, but like something. And whoever can agree on the best ideas, it just works. But freedom of speech is, you have a freedom of speech. Doesn't mean if you like it, then they can't say anything. And that's what's going on with everything. And that's all I'm going to say. Everybody can say whatever they want. Like it or not. That's what the First Amendment says. Now, if you're just spieling up, kill this person, kill that, kill it, that's absolutely ridiculous. And actually, that isn't. You're not supposed to threaten to kill somebody. It's a different story. That's ridiculous. But what the problem is there's still loopholes that people are still going to get away with it. And it ends up in court, and we just waste a bunch of money. But back to what I was saying, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you guys got any comments, leave it on the show when we put it on YouTube, and tell us what you think. Please don't argue with us, though. Try to just tell us your opinions, or if somebody says something, please don't argue on there with somebody else. That's what's going to usually happens. People start fighting on our page, and it gets ridiculous, and we don't want to deal with it. We'll just block it. People are going to have their opinions, like it or not. And that's just how it's going to be. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show on Parax Radio. I love you guys. It's been 3 years since we've been on Parax. I'm glad you guys enjoyed our show since we've been on there. You guys want to listen to all our other shows, check out James Hershey Jr.'s YouTube page. Subscribe. There's all kinds of other contents we do. And you guys will probably really enjoy it. Right now, because of what's going on with the coronavirus, we haven't been able to go out and do some ghost investigations. So we will eventually, when all this stuff eventually clears up one day. When not, well, I don't know what we're going to do then. But it will one day, and we'll start doing those videos again for Tales for the Abyss. And you guys want to pick up any merchandise like shirts and blankets and iPhone cases and all mugs, there we have a internet shop you guys can go to, and he'll tell you where to go after I'm done blabbing my mouth. So I hope you guys all have a good night, Misfits, Sugar Lady, Monster Hunters, and Demon Lovers. I love you. Have a good night, and blessed be.
This show was weird. It was weird because the initial concept for the show was to present that article and prove whether it was true or not. Problem is, that was so simple that it was literally a couple minutes. So it kind of turned into more of a therapeutic kind of show in a way for us, because this is a very turbulent time. There's a lot of really crazy stuff going on. And we're human like everybody else. So we are seeing atrocities being committed. We are seeing people losing everything they have. And it's sad, you know, and all that stuff is stressful, and all that stuff weighs on your heart and weighs on your soul, you know. Seeing people being hurt, seeing people having their entire life's work go up in flames, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Seeing both sides, the emotion and the pain, it's taxing. And sometimes you just gotta have a time like this where you can just talk, you know? So I want to thank everybody for sticking with us through it and listening. And I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart that we love you guys. And that's real. It's real easy in the heat of battle to go crazy sometimes, and things get way out of hand. But I honestly believe that at its base, mankind is good. And by mankind, I also mean women, just so there's no misconceptions. Your average man or woman is good-hearted. They'll hold the door for somebody. They'll let you go ahead of them in traffic. If they see somebody who doesn't have enough to eat, they'll buy them a meal. That is the goodness that is in everybody. We are all like that. I think we just need to find that love again. I think that's very important. You have people on both sides of this that are pushing an agenda. You have people on both sides of this that don't care about the truth, and they don't care about how it affects you. But the overwhelming majority of people are not like that. The overwhelming majority of people are kind of caught up in it, and they're like, well, I can see the points from this side, but they're doing all this other stuff too that's not cool. They can't do that. But I see some points from this side, but this is totally out of line over here. You know what I mean? The majority of us are kind of in the middle of this, and we're like, guys, just chill out. We have to be able to talk to each other and hear each other. That's the important thing. Because when you talk to somebody, it's not just talking and they listen. You got to be able to listen too. So with that being said, just know that I love you, and each and every one of you are important. None of you deserve any violence on you. No, none of you deserve to be belittled or hurt in any way. And I honestly pray that we can find our way again, all of us. Because we're lost, guys. We are all lost right now. We are way down the rabbit hole, man. And somehow, we have got to find our way back out. Because we have to live with each other. All of us do. Because life will go on. The world will keep spinning. The sun will come up tomorrow. And it doesn't matter what you think. It's going to happen anyway. We can't continually be in a state of war. We've got to be able to come together. And I believe that if we can all come together and stop fighting, that we could honestly fix a lot of things that are wrong in this country. We can make sure that our children have a better future than they are going to have now. We can make sure that nobody has to be afraid anymore. That's all doable, man, if we come together. Remember, we are the country that defeated the greatest war machine the world had ever seen at that time in World War II. We are the country that put a man on the moon in a rickety-ass spacecraft that had the computing power that doesn't even equal up to a digital watch today. And we put people on the moon with that. There's absolutely nothing that we cannot accomplish if we come together and work together to make everybody's life better. We just have to convince everybody else that that is what we should do. And if our leaders don't want to work together and come together, then screw them. Vote their asses out and put people in there that do want to work together and fix things. So I'm not going to waste any more of your day. I just want to tell you that I love you, and we will see you on the next episode. Until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.